Today we're going to attempt to demystify auto trading on Hive. As you know, it's a relatively granular system with a lot of moving parts. Before I proceed, I am required legally to present you this risk disclaimer, so please go ahead and read it, and also the risk warning below it. All right. The agenda for today is to give you a quick summary on what exactly Hive Hybrid is. Then I will discuss the Hawkeye Risk engine. I'll show you how to set everything up. Then we'll go into a deep dive on performance by signal stream, both robotic and human. And then I'll discuss the risk management options that are available to you, those looking to auto trade Hive. And then last but not least, we will discuss the divergence between manual results that you will see in the analytics section inside Signal Hive and the auto-traded results of the signals that you will find inside hybrid analytics, which are two separate sections inside Signal Hive. And then we'll end the presentation with a Q&A. So Hybrid is a plugin that was developed by the Signal Hive team in January of 2016. For those of you that are new, you'll recall that Signal Hive started around June of last year. Okay, so it's been about a year since we've been active. And in January of this year, we created a special plugin which allows clients to semi-automatically or fully automatically trade the robotic and human signals that you are subscribed to directly into your broker account. Okay. At the moment, and we're in June 2016 now, it works with the EU regulated broker binary.com. And over time, we will be integrating with more regulated brokers as well. You can connect your binary.com account, the demo or the real account, to your Hive Hybrid. Okay, so the good thing is that you can test out the auto-traded results, all right, whether it grows your capital, your demo capital or not first before jumping in with real money. All right, so the Hive Hybrid is giving you that opportunity. Now, to see the performance of signal streams when auto-traded using this hybrid plugin on FAT mode, mind you, FAT just means fully automatic mode, all right, as opposed to semi-automatic, you go to Hybrid Analytics, all right? So this section found inside your hybrid area will show you the auto-traded results by Hawkeye Risk engine setting. And I'll explain what Hawkeye means in a bit, all right? But here you can see the auto-traded results of the signals. For those of you that are manually trading Signal Hive, you would go to the analytics section found in Signals Room. That's different, all right? And one thing to note is that the performance of a signal on its manual and its auto-traded ITM can vary significantly. And we'll explain this process of divergence towards the end of the webinar. So let's discuss the Hawkeye engine, all right? The Hawkeye is a set of algorithms that monitors a signal after it has been fired on Signal Hive, okay? And depending on which Hawkeye setting that you have chosen for that signal, the system will decide whether or not to take the signal in your account, all right? Whether or not to replicate the signal. Now it looks at a few factors. It looks at price action, it looks at volatility in the price, and it looks like nearby support and resistance levels, okay, in determining whether or not it wants to take the signal. There are 9 total risk settings, okay, 9 Hawkeye settings. Now, if used correctly, the data shows that it can enhance win rates materially for certain signal streams, okay. Hawkeye does not work for all signal streams, but in summary, what it does is it boosts performance of traditionally what we would say weaker signal providers. All right, so it can make an unprofitable signal provider profitable. And I'm going to show you the data now as we do a deep dive into the analytics. But before we discuss that, for those of you that are a little bit unclear on how exactly you set everything up, so basically you would connect your Signal Hive hybrid account through hybrid settings, all right, by inputting the API token from your binary.com virtual money or real money account. All right, that's something you find over at binary.com when you're logged in there. And then you would select your mode of trading, either semi-automatic or fully automatic. The purpose of this webinar is to discuss hands-free trading, which is fully automatic. The view tutorial section inside Signal Hive explains this setup process step by step. Okay, but if you still face difficulty, you can email support@signalhive.com or post a query in the live tech support chat room inside Hive as well. Please also note that for FAT trading, which means fully automatic trading on hybrid, we strongly suggest that you obtain a VPS, which is a virtual private server which ensures an uninterrupted connection between your Signal Hive unit and your binary.com account. All right, 80 to 90% of clients currently have invested in a VPS solution, and it will set you back around $15 to $30 per month. We also have a step-by-step guide on how to set up a VPS, and our onboarding team, which is accessible at onboarding@signalhive.com, will help you set a VPS up. If you decide not to invest in a VPS, that is also fine, but note that you may have some missed signals and in general lower efficiency when auto trading, all right? Delayed signals and things like that. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's discuss performance analysis. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, you have to go to the hybrid settings area and then click on analytics there. And this section is different to the analytics section you find inside the signals room. All right, that's for manual results. The former is for auto traded results. So we're going to focus on the auto trading side of things today, right? We're not concerned about manual results. And I'm going to go through stream by stream. Okay, let's start with Turbo. Turbo is the 5-minute robotic signal that fires almost every day. It fires around, I'd say on a good day, 5 signals, on a slow day, maybe just 1, sometimes 0. But in general, you're getting around 3 to 5 signals a day. All right. Now, this chart, allow me to explain it. We haven't gone back all the way to June of last year, right? 1 year, because any data before January is hypothetical, whereas data after January is actually real world traded results into binary.com account holders' accounts, right? So we launched Hive Hybrid on the 10th of January or roughly like that, some date around there. And so we have, for the purposes of this webinar, we've shown only real world results, right? Nothing hypothetical before in an era where hybrid didn't exist. Although we have the data for it, for this webinar, we've stuck to real world results. So we have the full months of January, February, March, April, and May, and now just a bit of June, which I have not included here. So the blue bar chart that you see here, by the way, is the volume, the signal volume. For example, in January, the signal volume was 31 signals for Turbo. Okay, in February it was 23, 24. The green line, okay, the green curve that you see here, this line basically shows the win rate or the ITM percentage. Okay, the number of wins divided by the total number of signals. So in January, the Turbo was only able to achieve 55%. In February, market conditions became very difficult. Volatility became even more unreadable, and performance dropped to 44%. In March, it had a great month. It was at 69%, so it more than made up for the previous month, albeit on smaller volumes. But generally, April and May have been somewhat lackluster. Now, look, I have put here a red line, and the red line is actually the mathematical break even on 5-minute trades that you need to achieve in order to break even. Anything above it is profitable. For turbos, and this is really important for those of you that are new, for turbo signals, any short duration signals, I'm talking 1 minute to 5 minutes, the payouts are traditionally lower, up to 5 to 8 percentage points on average lower. All right, which means that you need a 62% break-even rate to make money on turbos. not the 58% you normally need to make money on the traditional expiries. So your life is a bit more difficult when you have turbos activated. And as you can see, generally speaking, if you sum all these up, right, in the last 5 months, the turbo has fired 129 signals, or 129 signals replicated, okay, on the ER setting. Mind you, ER setting, all that really means is um, is that the signal is immediately taken into your binary.com account. All right. So in this case, 129 signals were replicated on instant replication mode. That's ER, right? So there's no Hawkeye checks in place there. It just takes a signal if it's available. And you could get a worse price, you could get a better price. It's totally up to the gods, right, on that. So in this case, it only generated in the last 5 months 57% ITM. And remember, the break even required for the turbo is 62%. So in this case, turbo is on an ER basis, it's an unprofitable signal stream. Yeah, it had a good month, but generally speaking, it's caused more pain, right? That's the way to see it. So from your perspective as a client or a prospective trader, you're going to be looking at this data and saying, okay, maybe I should just switch the turbo off for my fully automatic trading, and that's actually a wise solution, right? Um, there is no dearth of signals in Signal Hive, and we'll show you later. There's so much volume, more than enough to meet your subscription per month and generate on top of that incremental return on your account. You absolutely do not need to worry that, oh, I'm going to miss signals, not be able to pay for my subscription. So on this front, on this data, it's basically telling you the turbo is kind of useless for auto trading, right? You can try manual trading. It's free. It's included in your subscription, $49.99 a month. So, you can certainly manually trade it when you see a good entry. Go for it. But the thing to note is on an auto traded basis, ER, which is instant replication, it's not that good. But if you switch Hawkeye on, all right, it becomes very selective. And the setting, and we've done the data mining, but you can do this yourself in hybrid analytics. Everything I'm showing you here today is the output of research that you can do yourself as well. We've just summarized it for you today. Actually, the turbo did make a bit of money if it was on the no risk setting, which is a very, very low risk setting. Okay, and it was only 4 signals in the last 5 months, so under a signal a month, right? But it did win 3 of those signals. Okay, now the data set is small, so it's maybe not that reliable, but you have 2 options right now. You could just say, look, I'm not happy with the turbo ER results historically, so I'm not going to put it on. Even in a good month when it generates 60%, 59%, I'm still losing money because the break even is high. That's fine, so just switch it off. Or go for the no risk setting. You'll only get a signal a month, but history shows that it's probably going to win, right? So that's another way of looking at it. You can switch the turbo on, but then go for the NR setting. Okay? But I want to reiterate something here. If you are going to be putting Hawkeye on, you're going to see much lower volumes, right? So just from moving from the ER setting, which is just take the signal immediately, you get 130 signals over 5 months, right? So roughly speaking, 25 signals a month or so, right? You drop down to the NR setting, which is the lowest risk setting, Hawkeye. Okay, so that means Hawkeye is really switched on. It's doing all sorts of checks. You're only going to get a signal a month, roughly. So the drop in volume is very significant. So if you do decide to switch Hawkeye on, understand that you're going to be obviously not getting all the signals that you see in the signals room. There is no link between that and this, all right? So that's something to bear in mind. So this is turbo, okay? Let's move on to the next signal. Now this is the curve, okay? This is the curve signal. And you'll see that January was kind of firstly, the break even is lower for curve, right? So the break even is just around 58 to 59% because it's a traditional expiry. It's not a turbo. So you get higher payouts, right? Binary.com can be quite generous with their payouts, especially on the longer term expiries, especially during the day and the evening. So this is the performance of Curve. And you'll see that it had a break-even January, a fantastic February and March, absolutely off the charts with decent volumes, and I would say slightly profitable April, but then it had a weaker May with just 50%. Now overall, on an instant replication setting, which means no Hawkeye activated, that means ER, Curve fired 144 signals with, let's say, 59 to 60% win rate, so it was profitable. All right. So if you are going to switch Curve on, this is the type of profitability over time you can expect. Okay. But it doesn't mean every week or every month is going to be profitable, as you can see with this chart. Right? Every signal stream has a variance profile. And as of now, we haven't engineered a signal stream that is just profitable every single week, right? I mean, that would become a perpetual money-making machine. We're working on that, but that's not there at the moment. Okay, so if you're going to switch Curve on, then ER is the best setting. It doesn't really work that well on the other settings, all right? But here's another thing to note. You don't have to switch Curve on just because it's borderline profitable, right? Ideally, if you're risk averse, you'll say and look at this and say, well, 59, 60% is fine, but it kind of, it can have a really weak month. It could hurt my returns on a particular month. Maybe I'm just going to switch it off, right? So this is kind of a borderline guess. From me personally, I would take a look at it and say, well, look, my investment horizon, I'm evaluating the performance of hybrid on a 3-month basis, on a quarterly basis. I'm very happy with taking Curve, right? It's generated some pretty good months, not every month, and overall 59 to 60% at that volume is not that bad, right? So this is something you're going to need to take a call on. So far, Turbo and Curve are questionable, right, for auto trading. But then we move on to Core, and you can see that Core has a more stable profile. Although again, it took a hit on much lower volumes, though, right? Generally, over time, you'll see that it's been above the break even required, which is 59, 58, 59%. And it's generated 83 signals since January with a win rate of 64%, which is very decent, right? Given that the required win rate is 58 or so. So Core ER is safe. And you'll notice Core, when it does have a bad week, it doesn't fire 5, 6, 7 times, just completely wiping out gains from your other wins, right? Or resulting in a big drawdown. It is very low volume as a signal. So 64% is decent, and an ER setting is safe. For those of you that want even lower risk, right, then the next setting, which shows profitability almost month on month for the last few months, is the NR setting, which is the no risk setting, where you get around 1 to 2 signals a month with Core. So it's very low volume, but then obviously at a pretty healthy win rate, which is 75%. So again, you're dropping your volume by almost 80%, moving from ER to NR, but you're getting a higher win rate. This is peak. Okay, so peak is similar to Curve in the sense that it's generally around 60% ITM on the ER setting, which is instant replication, all right, with 69 signals since January. But it's had a pretty heavy variance profile, as you can see, right? So it's had 82% in Jan, kind of had 36% in Feb at pretty high volume as well. So that was a pretty destructive month. It had 2 good months after that. We also tweaked it, by the way, in March. So since March, you'll see that it hits pretty good win rates, but it fires only 5 signals a month or so. In May, it fired 10 signals. In May, it fired just 3 signals, actually, and it only managed to win 1. So Peak is a low volume signal stream. It's been re-engineered in March. All right, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the data on January and February. I would say the data more after March is representative. You would need to take a call on, do you want sort of a 60% win rate stream, or go for the MR setting, okay, which halves the volume over time. So from 70 signals, it goes to around 37, but you can get 65% out of it. All right, so potentially the MR setting is a better setting for peak, but ER setting is not bad given that it's a low volume signal stream anyway. Okay. And I'm going to summarize all of this in a table later. All right. For those of you that are not keeping up, I'm just going through this one by one. And now we come to some of the more powerful streams. So you have Dive, right? Dive, this is the Dive performance on an ER basis. You'll see that over the months, apart from January, which was very low volumes, just 5 signals, you'll see that the volume has really cranked up with Dive. We've gone from around 15 signals a month to a good 20 per month, 20, 25 per month. And you'll see the win rate has been 63, 100, 60, 68%. Okay, so the win rate is really good over time. And over 62 signals since January, it's generated 68% actual auto-traded win rate, right? This is the actual wins, not hypothetical analytical wins. So this is a pretty robust signal stream. So we're not saying, this isn't investment advice. We're not saying that you should add this or put it on, but so far, this is the most robust robotic stream. And there are other Hawkeye risk settings that you can look at your own leisure. But the ER itself looks to be good enough. That's just what the data shows. So that's Dive. And we go to Pulse. So Pulse is the sick dog, or the dog with fleas. As you can see, it's kind of had a good January, but then February, March, April, May has just been lackluster. And in general, it's a 50% win rate stream on auto-traded results, right? And you can see it's a very, very high volume stream. 327 signals since January on ER, just 57% win rate overall. Now, 57% win rate is not going to cut it, right? Because remember, it's a 5-minute signal stream like the turbo, which means the break even required is at 62%. But if you switch on Hawkeye and you look at the performance on a month by month basis, so January, February, March, April, May, you'll see that 10 signals that did get taken under the LR setting, which is the low risk setting, it's one of the lowest risk settings, they managed to win 7 of them, right? And again, it's a small sample size, so you can't extrapolate so much from it, but it's worth noting that for those of you that have a bit more risk appetite, you can switch on Pulse, maybe have a lower trade size allocation for Pulse, as opposed to a Dive or as opposed to a Core or something like that. And you can then switch it on to the LR setting in your Hawkeye. All right, so you're only going to get around 2 signals a month, right? Only 2 signals are going to trigger the LR, but then those statistically have a higher chance of winning. All right. And then we look at the final robotic signal, which is the wave stream. And what you see here is a similar performance to Curve and Peak. You'll see 153 signals since January, 61% ITM, which is profitable. Okay, so Wave is a bit of a workhorse, but it has variance. I want to remind you that you may get a negative month, you may get a negative week or two. The answer is not to switch it off, because then you switch it off at the worst time possible. At the moment you switch it off, you'll see 2-3 good weeks of performance, right? That's how the variance cycle works. So basically, the point of this webinar is also to get you to think slightly longer term. All right, not micromanage your auto trader, because you'll see that over time, 61% with the break even being 58% is profitable, especially over this level of volume on an ER basis, right? So 153 signals since January, Wave did pretty well. However, again, because Wave is included in your free robos, right? It's included in your subscription. You don't need to switch it on or switch it off. It's cost neutral in that respect to you. So if you are going to choose between the two, might as well go for the SMR setting, which shows a little bit lower volume, about, I'd say around, 40% lower volume or so, 84 signals, right, rather than 153. But you're getting 63%, which is a very decent win rate, right? For a long-term expiry signal over time, that's 84 signals. That's around 15 signals a month from Wave, okay? 15 signals a month alone from Wave at a 63% win rate roughly. So you may wish to consider Wave at slightly lower Hawkeye risk settings. Okay. Now let's look at the humans. And again, I'm going to show you the table later so you have all of it neatly as a summary. But let's go over the humans. So this is Tiki, right? Tiki has been a big source of controversy in Signal Hive. Some people love the stream. Some people can't stand it. Some people use it only for manual. Ultimately, Signal Hive is a marketplace, and we let supply and demand, the invisible hand, decide who survives and who doesn't. The most important thing to note is that the data is all there if you look for it, right? There is never any data obfuscation. It's fully transparent. It's available in hybrid analytics. And what you see here is a pretty interesting picture. January, February, March, April, May, right? Draw your attention to the green line. Tiki has structurally underperformed the required win rate, which is 58 to 59%, which is the red line. month after month, right? In fact, he's underperformed it by 10 to 15 percentage points. He's not even close to coming to break even on an ER basis, right? Which is the instant replication, where the Hawkeye just switches off and it just takes the signal in your account. But also note that the volume is through the roof. It's off the charts, right? 315 signals. Um, it's almost 60 signals a month, right? Which is almost 3 to 4 signals a day, assuming there are around 22 business days, which is, in our view, what we teach in Blue Sky Binary is considered over trading, right? Especially if you're a signal provider at that level of volume, there is a trade-off. There's an inverse relationship between your volume and your win rate, and we see this very clearly here, right? But, and now this is where things get interesting. Is the answer to disregard Tiki completely, or is the answer to use technology and switch Hawkeye on? Because this is Tiki with Hawkeye, right? Take a look at the chart. I'll show you again. This is Tiki without, a structural underperformer. This is Tiki with, right? So using Tiki on the MR setting, which is 96 signals over time, or a third of the volume. So instead of 4 signals a day, you're just getting one. You can get you can crank out around 62% win rate out of Tiki, right? And the break even, remember, is 58% or so. So he becomes a profitable provider through the use of technology, right? And there's enough data here to support it. This isn't based on 15, 16 signals. This is based on hundreds of signals, right? So I want to, it's very important to take a look at these providers in a very unemotional manner because you're using the assistive technology that we have created. It's very important to access that technology. For those of you that don't believe in the technology, you can switch it off and say, okay, Tiki just doesn't meet the requirement because on an ER basis, he's a structural underperformer, and you move on, right? But for those of you that have slightly higher risk appetite, you can say, well, you know what? I'm going to switch on the technology, put him on the MR setting, and suddenly I have a profitable stream out of him, right? So let's take a look at Opportunist. Opportunist, better than Tiki on the ER setting, 182 signals versus Tiki's 315 signals, right? So roughly speaking, 40% drop in volume or 60% of the volume. But again, he's only generating 54% through time, all right? And again, the red line is what he needs to meet, and he's missing it by a few percentage points each month, right? But the same analysis that I did with Tiki, if you did for him, you'll see that actually month by month, every month, not just one great month and the rest were bad. On a VLR setting, all right, for Hawkeye, VLR, which means very, very, very low risk, you get 24 signals and 75% ITM. Now, 24 signals, that's over 5 months, so you're roughly getting 5 signals a month. And always tie this volume back to the cost of subscription. The good thing about the robos is they're all included in your $49.99. There's no incremental or marginally incremental cost to adding an additional robo, right? So it doesn't bite into your returns. For humans, each human you add, you're obviously paying their subscription. His subscription is something like, I think, $30 or something like that the last time I checked. So what you need to tell yourself is, okay, if I'm going to switch Opportunist on, I'm going to put him on VLR. I'm only going to get around 5 signals per month. I need to make more than $30, $40 profit per month, right? Which means your trade sizes may need to be around, well, hypothetically, $25 per trade is more than enough, right? But ideally, you may want to look at higher trade sizes to make it worthwhile. That's the way you would look at this, right? Or the answer is simply for you to say, I'm not interested, right? Because he's not making money on ER. Structurally, he's just not the greatest trader. I'm not interested in using Hawkeye technology to augment his returns, right? And that's not a problem. Like Dive and like some other streams, there are some clean streams that don't need Hawkeye technology, and you can limit your portfolio construction or your construction of your signal streams to those very high quality streams, okay? But if you are agnostic emotionally about the signal providers and you view all of them as robots, right? And don't let your emotions put signals off the day you have a bad day and you crank up your trade size the day you have a good day. If you stop micromanaging it, you'll see that actually accessing Hawkeye technology helps a lot. So that was opportunist. Let's move on to Saki, right? So, and I'm going to discuss Saki as a poster board example for divergence between the manual results, which are off the charts, versus his ER results, which are very pedestrian at best, right? So this is Saki's performance in January, February, March, April, May. He had a fantastic January, a weak February, a very average March, and he had a fantastic April, but a weak May, right? So in general, Saki has, I would say, fallen from grace to some degree. The market conditions are difficult. We are in a month where the UK may decide to leave the European Union, which is a systemically significant event. So this is obviously causing a lot of unprecedented levels of volatility, right? So signal providers do take a hit in May, or they have taken a hit in May. But over time, you'll see Saki on an ER setting, which means Hawkeye has switched off, has generated 60.2% win rate, which is profitable. It's absolutely not desirable. It's not excellent. It's not, above watermark. But the key thing to note is that it's above the technical watermark that you need to make money on binary.com, right, for your auto trading purposes. So, and based on also anecdotal evidence that we have, actual evidence as well from clients that have been using him through our Hive ATP program, he's generated months of profit, right, even before Hive Hybrid started. But the thing to note is that he's a high volume signal provider with a pretty mediocre ITM, right? So this doesn't get many people out of bed, and it shouldn't. And only if you are interested in this type of volume and win rate configuration, you can consider putting him on it, right? And again, this is in our view the best setting for him, but you can go into hybrid analytics and you may find a better risk setting for him. But the data shows that there is no better risk setting that really enhances his returns dramatically. Okay. So that's Saki. Now we get to Iris. Iris is currently the leader in Signal Hive in terms of volume and stability and returns. Iris has actually outperformed in a month, which has been a difficult month for the financial markets. And in February 100%, in March 67%, very high volumes as well. In April kind of had a drop, but then in May it's more than made up with fantastic increase in volume and win rate. Over time, Iris ER set 65% winner, right? 65% win rate signal. So if you look at Iris on this basis, you see that ER actually is delivering results. It's actually the best signal provider at the moment. However, if you still want to be more safer, there is the R setting, which is the risk setting, and there you get 30 signals, about half the volume, right? And you get it at around 70%, roughly speaking, right? So again, here you have a choice to go down the risk spectrum. And one thing you will notice with Iris, and again we'll discuss this later, is one of the few streams, one of three, I think, where its auto-traded results are in line with its manual results, right? And in this case, actually better than manual results. So if you're looking for quality, at least so far, we don't make any promises about the future, but at least so far, the data shows that Iris really it stands out, right? It really does stand out. And then we go to Wolfpack, relatively new signal provider. What you see here is similar to Opportunist and Saki, Opportunist and Tiki. 113 signals over the last 3 months, 54% win rate, doesn't quite cut it, all right? Structurally underperforming. He had one good month, which was April, but then May, the results fell sharply. However, with technology, again, with the Hawkeye Risk setting, you can get him at around a fifth of the volume, so there would be a drop of around 70–80% of the volumes. So 23 signals over a 5-month period, which means just around, around 3–4 signals a month, right, roughly speaking. But you get them at a 65% win rate. So it's similar to Opportunist if you switched on Hawkeye, right? So your option here would be, do I just give this person a skip, or do I put them on and I try them on with Hawkeye, right? Same analysis that you would come to with whether it's Tiki or Opportunist, right? Okay, so we went over the humans and the robos, and this is the This is the output. Okay, this is the summary, what you're seeing here. So from the robots, you have core, which can be put on at ER. You have dive, which should be put on at ER. Okay, and these are all Hawkeye settings. And then peak, MR, wave, SMR, pulse, and turbo, LR and NR, because those are structurally more riskier signals, pulse and turbo. Notice how it needs a much higher Hawkeye risk setting to help it. Sorry, a lower risk setting, right? To help it generate money. And with this configuration, you can expect around 40 signals per month. 40 signals per month, right? With your subscription being around $50 a month, if you add, let's say, $20 for a VPS, it comes to around 70 dollars a month subscription, right? So with 40 signals, you're paying, roughly speaking, around $1.70 or so per signal, in that range, right? Roughly speaking. Let's say $2 a signal. So you just want to make sure that the win rates on these, the configurations and the win rates on these, means that you are making enough to pay for your subscription and some money on the side for yourself so you can grow your account, right? That's the robotic break even. Now with the humans, you'll see that obviously Iris standing out as a beacon, followed by Saki, which can be taken on ER as well, but with much higher risk. And then you have Tiki and Wolfpack and Opportunist, where you need to switch Hawkeye on. Okay, and that needs to be done in order for them to become profitable or to have a chance of profitability. And then on these settings, if you were to be subscribed to all of them, that's 5 subscriptions, you get 70 signals a month. So almost double the volume, or around 90% more volume than you're getting from robots, right? But also note that subscribing to them, the total cost of subscription here is over $200 plus the 50 you're paying for Hive access. So your break even is also much higher. You can mix and match. Of course, you can mix and match, and we urge you to mix and match, do your own research. But this is a, a research-driven outcome, what we have done today, what we have shown you. And you will notice that generally speaking, the settings you choose are not going to diverge too much from this. All right. And that's one point I wanted to make on over diversification inside Signal Hive Hybrid. It's, everything that glitters. If people get excited by a few weeks of Pulse being green, so they put it on, they put money on it, and then Pulse just goes negative in terms of its variance cycle, and you get a lot of OTMs. Um, just because the signals are there, it does not mean you need to switch all of them on and auto trade them, right? That's a recipe for 50% ITM, because then you'll become the average of the system, right? And the entire Hive over time, as we add more signals and more streams, because they have different variance profiles, it'll probably average out at roughly 58% win rate, right, as a system on ER. But you want to beat that. You want to come close to 65%, maybe even 70%, and therefore you should really handpick your signals, right? Because volume-wise, you only need 1, 2, or 3 to more than break even on your subscription per month. You don't need to subscribe to all of them on all these settings, because then you might get over diversified, right? So just bear that in mind. So this is the risk management that we have in place here. And what you'll see is this you can find at the bottom of your hybrid settings area. You have a daily stop loss amount, and this is a numerical value of your currency unit that you have set your binary.com account, right? Or whichever broker that it does integrated with Hive at the time of you viewing this video. Basically, the daily stop loss amount, for example, I've put 100 here, that's $100, right? So if my account is $300, if I lose 100, the system will shut down and no more trades will be taken for that particular day. All right. So that's what daily stop loss amount means. It's how much money you're willing to lose on your account, right, on any given day. Now, one thing to note is because of the idiosyncrasies with the binary.com API, the issue here is that if you go down, if you go from 100 to 75 or from 75 to 50, you can't crank it up again back to 70 to 80 or 100. You can only do that after you write to them, and then permission based, they will view it and they will activate it on their end, and that can take 7 days. So be careful with this daily stop loss amount setting. The next setting is the daily stop loss positions. Um, this is somewhat more intuitive, but basically this is the number of total positions that lose on any given day, right? So it's not necessarily in disagreement with the daily stop loss amount. But all this is saying is that it's saying, okay, irregardless of how much money I've lost. So let's say I've not lost 100, but I've lost three trades where I lost 20, 20, and 20, right? So I lost 80, then you'll be shut out for the day, right? So this is kind of like a second break in place. So this is a good one to monitor, right? And then you have the number of open positions. Now, this is interesting because this is like a correlation filter. In very rare instances, because we've done a lot of engineering on Hive, so you'll notice that Hive is pretty well um, protected or armed against news. You don't see signals firing during news or anything like that. In rare instances, you may get correlated signals firing. You may get a EuroCAD, a GBP CAD fired by two or three signal providers, one that's human, one that's robotic, because they're using expert advisors, and they all get replicated in your account, and you don't want that. You never want, doubling or tripling of your exposure on one particular correlated currency pair, right? And that can happen in rare instances. And so what you want to do is this number of open positions. This means number of signals that can fire simultaneously. Okay, you can keep this to a low number, whether it's 3 or 5 or 2 or 1. That's totally up to you. We would not suggest that you crank this up to 10 or whatever. And then last but not least, we have a minimum payout filter. This basically checks the broker API just before the signal is taken to see if you're getting a healthy payout. You remember we were going over this analysis here, and I was showing you the red line, which is the break-even line, right? That the signal providers need to be above in order to generate capital return. And that payout, and that's actually a function of payout. So if suddenly binary.com's payouts drop to 40% or 50%, this red line would move up dramatically, right? You need 70% win rates to make money, and that's untenable. That's not acceptable, neither for you as a client, neither for us as a brand. So this is actually very important that you pay heed to this minimum payout recommendation, and you put this at, I personally would put it at 70% because I'm not going after volume. I'm going for very high quality. So I have very few signals taken, but certainly, nothing lower than 60%, right? And you don't want to go over the top on this and put 80% because you'll just miss a lot of signals because you don't get payouts that often on signals that are above 80%. So you use this sparingly. And then last but not least is the status. You can switch hybrid off by clicking on or selecting inactive, or active and leave it on. Some of you have come to us asking if we can put hybrid off at night or at certain times of day. You can certainly do it manually. There is no automatic calendar or clock, but you can come in here and just activate or deactivate and click on save. All right, now let's discuss divergence. And this is an important issue. So what is divergence, firstly? Divergence is in charts is completely different. It's a technical pattern-based phenomenon that we're not going to go into today. We teach that at Blue Sky Binary. Divergence here, I'm referring to more, is the divergence in results that you see between the analytics section, right? So what you see on the Hive signals display, and what you see in hybrid analytics, which is the auto-traded results of the same signal. Okay. So I think a lot of you probably already know what I'm going to say because you've been on the webinar so far, but I think it's important anyway to touch base on it again. So here at the top is a screenshot that we took today of Mr. Saki from the 1st of January 2016 till the 31st of May, which was just a few days ago. And you'll see that his win rate is a spectacular 71.3%. with a whopping 328 signals, right? So on the face of it, that looks like the signal provider, you just all have to jump to. But upon closer inspection, if you go to hybrid analytics for the same date range, exactly for the same date range, you'll see actually it's 60.2%, which is profitable as well, right? And I think the signal count was something like 318 or something. So it's still profitable, but it's a much lower win rate. It's almost 10 to 11 percentage points. And this difference here is known as divergence between manual results, results that you could hypothetically achieve manually if you were able to get those prices. And some of those prices that he fires on are triggered by expert advisors, which are not the same quote feed that you're going to get on your brokers. So he may get favorable entries and you don't, right? That's an important thing to note. So the manual results that you see here are indicative at best. The auto-traded results are punitive to some degree, but generally speaking, they are a better barometer of the performance, okay, of that signal provider. Now, why is this happening, right? Why are we allowing it? Why is it happening? So it's this is where things get granular. So, firstly, pair unavailability, right? So, a lot of these signals, around six, we did a study, 6 percentage points of the 71% is because of signals like USD PLN, right? Exotic pairs like Euro NOK that Saki has an advantage on because his EA that he has configured works really well on those pairs. Those pairs have a particular volatility pattern at night that he gets a win rate of 80% plus on, right? But binary.com doesn't have those pairs. And someday they will, and we're working with them to add them, but at the moment they don't. So his win rate here goes up, but his win rate here stays static on that, right? That's the one thing. So there are a few pairs that signal providers may be firing on that are not available on binary.com. And as a result, the analytics here may look inflated, and the analytics here is more realistic, so to put it, right? The second reason is more technical, all right? The second reason is because any signal provider that has coded or engineered an expert advisor, which is basically a robot which sits on MT4 stations, right? It sits on MT4 trading stations on servers that is scouting market opportunities on all currency pairs that it's attached to 24 hours of the day in real time, right? So it's a robot. If a signal provider is using that, then the stream that powers the robot, the signal quotes that it's getting, is not the quotes that binary.com has or that a spot option based broker has or anything like that. Those quotes are raw quotes from the market. And so you can get discrepancies in price. So it may trigger a signal, right? Although your binary.com price is nowhere near it, right? And that's an inefficiency in the system, but it's something that's going to remain, mainly because binary option brokers take an average of bid and ask prices, they take massaged prices, and that's no statement of bearing on their quality as companies. It's just a fact that they're commercial shops, whereas the quotes that the signal providers are getting for expert advisors are industrial strength data providers. So ultimately, the the answer is not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can't take the EA and shut them all down. We simply won't have signals, right? And that's not the answer. The answer basically is to view these analytics results as indicative and then go to the hybrid analytics to see more real world type of performance. All right. Now, the good news is in certain streams like Iris, which is a bit of a poster child at this moment of Hive, you'll see that during the same date range that we had selected for Saki, the performance is just 60%, 60.4% to be precise, over 106 signals in analytics. So I'm talking manual ITM. If I go over to auto-traded ITM for the same date range Iris, the performance is 65%, dramatically higher, right? Significantly higher. I mean, that's significantly better. So the same factors that I just told you that are driving the divergence, the inverse or the negative divergence in Saki, are also driving the positive divergence in results on Iris. All right, so these are important things to take on board. All right, so that's it. Let's have a Q&A, and I'll take your questions now, and then we can call it a day. All right, so questions from anyone, please. Go ahead and type out your question, Chang. I'm not going to be unmuting anybody because of the signal connection. So go ahead and ask the question using your keyboard. All right, I see a question with regards to social trading and how far along we are with a situation where the signal provider is taking a signal in their own account on binary.com, and then those that are subscribed to them automatically have that replicate in their account. So we made a change last week, which has brought us very close to that anyway. And basically, all that is the providers like Tiki and Opportunist and Wolfpack, all of those that are manually giving signals before were selecting in their signal delivery module pairs that may or may not have been on binary.com, and the pairs were priced using Oanda data. So when they would give an entry price, you would basically get a big deviation between their entry and what the ER entry was in binary.com. Last week, we've actually tied the binary.com feed to the signal delivery module, which means that all these traders now are taking the signals effectively in their own account because the signal price they give is the binary.com ER price, right? So effectively, we've already moved to the social trading model. It's just not explicit, but you won't be getting that discrepancy anymore. The only place that discrepancy will exist is on the EA fired signals, like the turbo, some of Saki's signals, which are based on EAs, because those are not priced off of binary.com. But for all manual signal providers, we're already there. All right, I see a question from Chang Quag. Is this engine the same or all other auto trading system? Chang, I'm not entirely sure I understand your question. If you could rephrase it. Yeah, it's a good point, Ross. Ross is making a great point. So Ross is saying, I guess trade size becomes an important issue. We can't just go on with $5 per trade to make an overall profit. Yeah, so with $5 a trade, you're 100% right, Ross. You'd either need a fantastic month where all signals were profitable, or most of them, and then you'll still only make slightly above the subscription if you subscribe to all streams. The better answer is to really look at this data in depth and pick out the few signals, maybe just even one, right? I mean, just Iris, or maybe Iris and Dive, or something like that, and then set more adequate trade sizes, right? So if you have, for what, let's, for practical purpose, you have a $500 account, use appropriate risk money management and put a higher trade size, right? And then that's probably going to result in better performance rather than just broadly diversifying, subscribing to all streams, and then going for the $5 per trade thing. That just won't work. Okay, Chang, you're asking about Hawkeye. So you're asking, is this engine the same as all other auto trading systems? No. So Hawkeye is specific to Signal Hive. At this moment, we haven't ventured out and asked other companies to stream their signals via Hawkeye. But right now, all the signals inside Signal Hive can be used with Hawkeye, apart from the two EOD providers, which are HAL and Alpha. But as of next week, we'll have data on those as well. So this webinar will be updated. Okay, Chang, I see you tried other robot systems, very bad. Yeah, Chang, and the thing is, so first thing, we're not affiliate marketers. So our robots are not designed to deplete your account, right? Just to be clear, a lot of the robots you've tried are purposely designed or purposely ignored in their development so that they deplete accounts over time, right? They serve a completely different purpose. Our job here is to win uh, and allow you guys to win. Obviously, market conditions make this very difficult at times, but what the data shows is that you have to be very selective, right? For example, Dive is by far the best robot, right? There's no way, there's no not two or three ways to slice it. You can just take a look at the data. Um, so you have to be very selective, right? The thing we would not advise you to do is to subscribe to all streams and then be offended by 50% ITM at the end of the month. Yes, exactly. Exactly. A question from lots of bots with regards to the real world results. Exactly. So we are, we're very close to full blown social trading, but I think this is already very close because it's as good as them taking it in their own accounts, right? So you can consider this, I think, a pretty good surrogate, so to put it, until there. Any other questions from anyone? I think while we're waiting for more questions, one point I wanted to make is that you will find in your hybrid settings to your right something known as house settings. And the house settings are settings that we are internally researching and putting out, and we update them once in a while. No major changes, but they're tweaked. And they're very similar to what you see here, but these settings here are even lower risk, okay, than the house settings. And based on the research that we've done, these are the most ideal settings based on the 6 months of data we have, real world data, right? Now, we're not saying that these won't change in the future, right? But we can say comfortably that for the robots, most likely they won't, right? With the humans, sometimes you get changes in strategy, right? Like Opportunist changed his strategy in February and March, and he saw a slight pickup in win rates, right? Um, Saki added 5 minute signals to his assortment, which complicated matters to some degree. Because if we actually look at Saki's performance the last 2 months, this 67%, 50%, the underlying win rate on his 5 minute trades was actually 75% and 59%, respectively, right? I'll rephrase that. So April, Saki generated 67% on around 45 signals. And in May, he generated around 50% on, let's say, 60 signals, right? However, if you strip out, if you actually decompose the signals, you will see that the underlying win rate on Saki's 5 minute signals, which he launched in early April, was 78%. So it was higher than the 67% average. And it was 59%, again, higher than the overall average in May, which means that his traditional signals, right, the 30 minutes, the end of hours, and those were much lower than this average, right? And they've come under pressure and fire. So they're pulling his win rates down. So obviously, to that end, the good news is that he's splitting the stream. So he's going to be offering the 5 minute signal separately for those of you that are interested just in his 5 minute signals, which, by the way, have a win rates of around 70% actual ER, right? And so they're also more intelligent. The code or parts of the code that he has shown us, they're better. And so it'll allow you to really kind of decompose Saki so you don't have to necessarily be subscribed to his higher variant signals, which are the longer expiry ones. Yeah, I see a follow-up from lots of bots with regards to where in that development. So right now, I think we are kind of content with the changes we've put through um, in terms of social trading. Um, we want to see now that the signal entries are binary.com entries, the manual ones at least. We want to see what results these have because it's basically social trading. You're copying the signal provider who's taking it at your price. It's not the Oanda price anymore, right? So we want to see how that goes, and if we see promise there, then of course we'll look to the social trading model. But having said that, again, it's very possible for anyone to set up shop in Signal Hive now as a manual signal provider and take the signals in their own account and have those copied over to clients, right? We have that infrastructure already. That's just there. We have no name for it at the moment. Our focus right now is on continuously improving Signal Hive, as we enter probably one of the most difficult months of the year with regards to Brexit. And equally importantly, Artemis, which is the next big development, which begins work in 2 weeks' time. And once that's out, that'll be an 8-week development or so. Um, that also has a social trading element in it. So we need to see where we're going to put the social trading in Artemis or inside Hive. It remains to be seen. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So the Saki on the 5 minute, that was a no-brainer. I think we were approached by him, and he basically said that it makes sense. I think he's going to price it very low at first, ridiculously low, because it's not his mainstream. He doesn't have a long track record with it. So let's see how that goes. Uh, See a question from Peter. When will the 5 minute signals from Saki be available as a separate stream? Peter, we're probably looking at an ETA of 10 business days on that. Please note that the team is extremely busy at the moment on a range of things. It's just ridiculously busy, and a lot of it is in Hive. So the moment we receive the approval from him, then of course we'll put it on, but probably 10 business days from today. See a question from Ross Guthrie. Do you have a do you have to contact binary.com to change the number of trades taken at the same time? Mine is set on one, which I can't change. That is news to me, Ross. I did not know that. It shouldn't be the case. No, that is not linked to the binary.com API. So you're telling me you can't increase it to 3 again? If that's the case, please write to support@signalhive.com. That may be a technical error on our side. Okay, I see a question from Zayad Al-Hajj. Is there a plan to have Signal Hive for MT4 accounts FX spot? Yes, Zayad, there is a plan. Absolutely, and I think it's a good time. Maybe I can give a quick update on the Hydra project. Project Hydra basically is to take Hive into FX. The technology is working very well, which means all the signals are instantly replicated. The stop losses are auto-triggered. That's all fine. Um, the downside is none of the signals work, right? So I think that's the most honest admission, the way to put it. They work. Um, so the humans don't work at all, right? Some of the bots do. So, like with any successful attempt at technology, whether it was sending people to the moon or sending airplanes up in the sky, there's always a lot of failed attempts in research and development. And I'd say Hydra is a project which is a 1-year project, and we have some interesting tests we're doing right now with completely different signal streams that we're going to be putting into Hydra and seeing how those run, right? So if you want, in answer to your question, if you want the signal streamed on your FX account, we can already do it. We have the EA developed. It's the Hydra EA. The signal logic, however, we're still working on, which actually generates good, stable, good amount of pips per signal um, on FX. So that's maybe something I can give you a better update on 3 to 4 months from now. Okay, I see a question from a section. Okay, Lots. Okay, so follow from question from Lots. Saki will be using binary.com pricing for the 5 minutes. So here's the thing. The answer is no, because it's an EA, right? So, however, we have looked at the ER win rates of Saki on the 5 minute, and they're in the range of 70%. they're about 10 percentage points higher than his traditional ones on ER, right? His manual win rates are almost comical. Um, his manual win rates, which is the OAND API, they're close to 90% on the 5 minutes. So that adds a bit of a comical flavor to it. But uh, what you need to know is that for the ER, we've looked at that actual replications in client accounts, it's around 70% for his 5 minutes. And remember, on his 5 minute trades, you're going to get lower payouts, so your break even is 62%, not 58. Now, the thing to note about binary.com is ideally all of our EAs would be running on binary.com data, right? That would be the ideal world, but they don't offer that. Unfortunately, their data is delayed by it's 2 seconds. It's a 2 second proposal API. All our EAs are priced off of tick by tick data, which is instantaneous. So that's a technological gap that binary.com is going to need to fill. So yeah. The good news is that obviously any human trader that doesn't use an EA will be forced to use the binary.com model now, right? So the pricing will be harmonized. Uh, we've received a bit of pushback from some of the human signal providers saying, well, it's not fair to the humans that we're held to the standards of binary.com, those prices, so our win rates are going to be lower. Whereas guys like Saki, who half their signals are priced off of EAs, are just going to get higher win rates, right? Because they have better prices and pair and availability. And that's a fair point. So um, our answer to that is we've removed 5 pairs from Saki already, which were inflating his win rate by 6 percentage points. So Saki's natural win rate, you're not going to see the 7 handle on that anymore. That's going to drop to around 66%. Um, and another thing is that on Signal Hive, if you go to the top right, you look at the win rate of the signal providers on the humans, right? And you see Saki at the top with 69 or 70%, but that's manual ITM, right? His true win rate would put him much lower. So we are going to be ordering that page based on ER win rates, if you see what I mean. You already see on Signal Hive, our focus is switching towards AUT, the automated result of the signal, not so much the manual result. So we're always focused on that. So we're going to start sorting the signal providers also in terms of popularity based on their ER results, their actual binary.com results, right? So the focus on this whole manual thing will greatly diminish, but it'll never go away, mainly because we see clients that are increasingly coming and they manually trade it, and and for a range of other reasons. Any other questions from anybody? Yeah, see a question from lots of bots. What are we going to call social trading? I think we'll just call it community traders. I mean, in the end, you know, oh, wait, I'm hearing that's been done before, so I guess we'll need to come up with a new name. I'm only kidding, but yeah. Last call for questions from anyone? Okay, I see a question from Peter Pearson. Can the analytics data of manual and auto be standardized in format to make comparisons easier? That's a great point. So we totally concede that the hybrid analytics leaves a lot to be desired in terms of analysis and granularity, right? So A lot of things are lacking in the hybrid analytics. For example, you can't see a month-by-month development per Hawkeye setting of ITM and volumes. You just see this pie chart, right, which just tells you the total number of signals and win rates. You don't see the potential development on a hypothetical balance of $100 and how the equity develops per Hawkeye stream. That's something that needs to be there. You don't see the breakdown of win rates by currency pair in hybrid analytics. You don't see the breakdowns of win rates by expiries in hybrid analytics. And you don't see the breakdown of win rates by day of week, right? Or even for that matter by the hour. And you see a lot of this data you see in the manual analytics. And again, this is more a symptom in answer to your question, Peter, because I know we've had a lot of debates about this. This is more a symptom of the fact that we developed the hybrid plugin just as an add-on in January, right? It was always originally a manual service, and that's why we have these two systems within systems. And 100%, it's not commercial, and it's confusing. It's confusing and it's convoluted. So the answer to your question is, where we see analytics going is it'll be one analytics section which will have a hybrid tab, and you just tab over to it and you'll have all the same data that you have in normal analytics so that you can draw comparisons. Or it will be harmonized such that there is only one analytics page and you see the manual um, equity curve and the hybrid auto-traded equity curve side by side as well, right? And the win rates and all of that. So that's definitely on the docket. But again, with regards to development, this will take a bit of time. Any further questions from anybody? Yeah, Peter's asking maybe the raw data can be provided as Excel data to let the users make comparisons. No problem. For paying clients, that's something we already do, Peter. We get requests almost 5 a week to send the back test, send the Excel. Uh, for the more intellectually curious clients, we definitely provide that. So feel free, just request it, support@signalhive.com. All the data is there in our bank, so we can send it to you. Any further questions from anyone? All right, so this is a last call for questions before we call it a day on this weekend. And this video, of course, is recorded and it will be posted in the video section of Signal Hive. All right, so last call for questions, final call. All right, I see no further questions, so I wish you all a good Sunday and a good trading week ahead. Remember, 17th is officially the date that a lot of the FX brokerages are lowering their margin requirements, and a lot of the British pound and the US dollar pairs, for risk management reasons, because the 23rd is the big date when the UK votes for a potential exit out of the European Union or entry and or remained entry. So I think it's important that you realize that we're headed into a very big storm. Okay, towards the end of next week, early week after next. All right, and we may even switch off Signal Hive for 1 or 2 days during then. Right, this is just for risk management reasons. So just be mindful that there is a very big storm coming very soon. So be aware. All right. On that cheerful note, have a good day.